1.
Hello, InTech Corporation. Catherine speaking. How can I help you?
Oh, hello there, Catherine. It's me, Susie.
Oh, hi. How are you?
Not too bad, thanks. Listen, I'm just calling to check whether the delivery we sent out on Monday has reached you yet.
It has, yeah. It came in this morning, I believe.
Oh, that's good. I was just panicking over nothing then.
Well, better safe than sorry, isn't it?
Exactly. Anyway, how are you? How are things your end?
Oh, we're hanging in there. Sales have actually picked up a bit this quarter, so that's good. And we've actually taken on a couple of new people, so can't complain, How's life with you? How's the little one?
Oh, she's good. She's just coming up to 1 now and she's crawling around everywhere and babbling away to herself all the time.
Oh,
Yeah. I'll send you pictures if you want.
that'd be lovely, yeah. And how's Mark?
He's okay. He's been away a lot with work recently, actually, which has been a bit of a pain, but hopefully that'll ease off a bit soon.
Yeah, that can't be easy. Hey, how was your holiday? Didn't you go away somewhere recently?
Yeah, that's right, we did. 2 weeks in Crete. Oh, it was lovely. Over far too quickly, of course, but much needed.
Oh, that's good, though.
Yeah. 2.
Hello, CNC.
Hi, is that Matt?
Yeah, Dietmar, hi. I was just thinking of you, actually. I saw the draw for the European Championships.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry, but England have to lose to someone.
Don't count your chickens yet. Let's wait and see.
I admire your optimism.
Well, you have to look on the bright side, don't you? Especially in our line of work.
Tell me about it. How are things, anyway?
Not too bad, all things considered.
And what's happening with the relocation?
Well, it's still on the cards, apparently. We've told them it's a bad idea, but they just won't listen.
Well, just think of all the savings you'll make on your overheads.
And on wages, if half the staff who are threatening to leave actually do.
A lot of that's just talk, I'd imagine. They'll soon come round.
I hope you're right. Anyway, what can I do for you today?
Well, I was just wondering if we could maybe sort out a time for a meeting during the trade fair next week. It would be good to talk through Mexico with you.
Yeah, of course. Is Thursday any use to you?
Yeah, maybe. What time?
Well, I could squeeze you in the morning if you want. Say 10, 10:15?
Yeah, 10:15 should be fine. I'll pencil it in.
Great. See you then.
I've also been approached by the unions, but perhaps that can wait till AOB at the end of the meeting.
OK, thanks, Catherine. I've got that noted. We'll come back to that later on then. OK, so let's move on to the next item on the agenda. We've already touched on the background to this, but perhaps, Henry, if you could just restate the situation?
OK, well, I've handed out the spreadsheet of current figures, and, as you can see, we're set to make a substantial loss this year. Obviously, it's been a volatile year for everyone in the industry, but we can't simply blame economic problems. We've also underperformed.
Well, not entirely. We've exceeded our sales targets in Eastern Europe.
Yes, that offers some hope, Rachel, but that was starting from quite a low base. I know there are high hopes for this new product, but I really feel the way forward is to cut back on costs.
Cutting costs? I would have thought we were at the limit, to be honest. People are already overstretched.
It doesn't have to mean more work. We could renegotiate deals with suppliers and then scale back operations.
You mean layoffs?
Well, some redundancies maybe, but hopefully they'll be voluntary.
Really?
OK, Catherine, I think we're getting ahead of ourselves here. Henry, why don't you put together some costed proposals for cutbacks to present at the meeting next week? Then we can see what the possible implications might be. Is that OK with everyone?
Yeah, I think so.
Now, moving on to our next item. Marta, I believe you and Alex have something exciting to show us.
We certainly do. And as Henry suggested, we do have high hopes for it. If we can tap into the right market for this, it may even help to ease some of the financial problems that have just been highlighted. I'll let Alex talk you through things. Alex.
Yeah, thanks, Marta. So this is a prototype of what we're calling the Shoe Saver. As you can see, it's basically a compact box. This is a basic design, but we're planning others. Essentially, you pop your shoes inside and give it a blast to remove all the smells. I've brought along a pair of my son's trainers to demonstrate.
Oh, they smell dreadful.
Yeah, they've been left damp in a bag to show you just how effective the box is. So, I put them in and switch it on. It takes a minute. Yes, Rachel?
How does it work? I mean, what's the science here?
Yeah, right. So what it does is it uses tiny particles of silver, which have antibacterial properties once ionized, and they essentially kill the microbes that cause the odors.
Right, okay. I'm not sure what ionized means, but isn't the silver expensive?
Yeah, but we're talking tiny amounts. Okay, there. Done. Have a sniff.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, great.
Very impressive.
Very. So what margins are we looking at with this?
Well, unit costs are between 35 and 45 euros.
And we'd be looking for it to retail at between 100 and 120 euros.
Which would certainly improve our bottom line.
Why such uncertainty about production costs? That's quite a big range you've given.
Well, we're looking at a deal to outsource production, which could bring significant savings. The higher figure would be if we used our own factories, and that's also very much erring on the side of caution.
Sure. And what kind of sales projections do you have? Rachel?
We've estimated something in the region of 10,000 units in the first year, followed by 30,000 in year 2, 100,000 in year 3, and 250,000 by year 4.
Gosh.
I know that sounds ambitious, but we're all really excited about this product. Henry, you don't look convinced.
Yeah, I don't want to be the bad guy. But have you really thought this through? You know, there's already a range of products that can solve this problem. Will people really want to pay 120 euros for this?
No, it's a fair question. I think the first point is that this is far more effective than the sprays and insoles currently on the market. We estimate it could extend a shoe's life by up to 50%, so it'd pay for itself. Secondly, our initial market is not actually homes, but health clubs and gyms. A longer term, growth would come from high-end consumers, and we've already had some positive feedback from focus groups.
I think Katrin wants to come in.
Sure.
Yes, what about patents? Is this original technology?
I'll take this one, if I may.
Sure.
Well, the technology's been around for a while, so that's not something we control, but we have patented a couple of the manufacturing processes that we think will give us an edge over any competitors.
Plus, of course, we'll have a head start in establishing the brand.
Good evening, everyone. It's good to see such a large turnout. Clearly, the entrepreneurial spirit is alive and well, despite the current economic situation. Now, the first question I have to ask, or rather, the question you have to ask yourselves is, why are you starting a company? If it's because you've carried out a great deal of research and you've spotted a gap in the market for your product or service, then go ahead. Do it. If, on the other hand, you're fed up with long hours and you want to free up more time for the kids, think again. A new company will put even greater demands on your time. Likewise, if you're fed up taking orders from other people, I'd also advise caution. Power-hungry CEOs often struggle to take off. The same goes if profit is all that motivates you. Margins will be low at the start, so you'll probably make very little initially. But if you have a genuine fascination with whatever you're selling, then go for it. Now, some of you here might be thinking about having your second go at business because your first attempt was short-lived. Take heart. Some of the world's top entrepreneurs have done exactly the same thing. You can learn a lot from past mistakes. A word of warning, though, never try to get a new company going while you're still employed elsewhere. I'll tell you why. If you see your business as a backup plan or a compensation for your boring regular work, you'll never commit yourself 100%. And no, your new business won't be successful. It's all or nothing. So what you need to do in these circumstances... It's just as important to know why businesses fail as why they thrive. Many failures occur when entrepreneurs lack sufficient management knowledge. They might be good at dealing with customers, but they lack expertise in handling hard-to-manage employees as well as in financial matters. The next reason, and you won't believe how often this occurs, but many people have no real idea about how much capital they need. Putting in long hours won't necessarily help you if you sink too far into debt. So you really need to be realistic about this. People's failure to consider location can also lead to bankruptcy. They haven't thought about how accessible the store or office is or how close they are to competitors. So don't just choose a location because it doesn't need much renovation or because it's close to suppliers or your home. Now, most businesses these days have the sense to set up a website with opening hours, addresses and so on. So why do some forget to put up a catalogue too? If customers can't find one of these, they'll soon look elsewhere. And when times are tough, worry less about promoting your luxury products and services and more about highlighting your discounts. You'll keep your income up that way. Remember, entrepreneurs who overcharge their customers never see them again. The final point that I'm going to make is that rather than focusing on short-term business, you want to encourage repeat business. That's the way to make your company grow.
One.
Did you read that thing about transplanting the noses of mosquitoes?
What? Are you serious? I didn't think mosquitoes even had noses.
Yeah, well, it's obviously not a nose in the sense of our noses, but apparently it's like the smelling receptors on the antennae on their heads. And what they do is they somehow get these receptors to grow inside frogs' eggs so that they can do tests on them.
How on earth do they do that?
To be perfectly honest, I'm not really sure. They extract the DNA from the receptors or something and then insert it into the eggs. It's a bit beyond me, really. I just thought it was amazing.
It sounds a bit peculiar if you ask me. I mean, what's the point?
Well, apparently they use them to see what smells trigger the receptors.
And?
Well, it's to stop the spread of malaria. Obviously, mosquitoes are strongly attracted to the smell of human sweat. But if they can find smells which create a bigger stimulus or which produce no trigger, then they could use those smells to manufacture traps to tempt the mosquitoes away from humans or spray on repellents that mask human smells.
OK, I suppose that makes sense. I have to say, though, I still find all that gene manipulation a bit worrying.
What do you mean?
Well, it's a slippery slope, isn't it? One moment it's mosquito noses, the next they'll be engineering babies.
Come off it. It's hardly the same thing.
2.
Did you read that thing about building a sun shield in space to prevent global warming?
No. It sounds a bit unlikely, though. I mean, how big would it have to be?
Well, apparently about 60,000 miles long.
60,000? That's ridiculous. I mean, how on earth are they going to build something that big, let alone get it up there? They struggle to build a stadium here on time and on budget.
Well, that's it. The idea with this is it's not like one big structure. It's millions of little reflectors which form a massive cloud.
But how many would you need?
Trillions. They reckon if they launched a pile of these things every 5 minutes or so, it'd take 10 years to make.
Hardly an instant solution, then.
No.
And what about the cost?
I've no idea, to be honest, but they claim it's all quite possible. Anyway, this guy got a grant to look into it further.
You're joking. What a waste of money. Are you sure it isn't just a scam or some made-up story?
It was on a fairly reliable website. They wouldn't have just made it up.
Puh! Mind you, I sometimes wonder whether the whole climate change thing isn't all just a scam. I mean, there are a lot of rich and powerful people out there who stand to benefit from us being scared into believing it's all true.
You're not serious, are you?
Yeah, why not?
Because the evidence is pretty conclusive.
Says who?
So next, statistics, often thought to be the worst kind of lying there is. A recent survey found that 60% of Britons believe the probability of tossing a coin twice and getting two heads is 50%, rather than the correct answer of 25%. Our guest today, Tom Hunter, thinks this is a worry and says we need to get to grips with stats. Tom, welcome.
Hi.
So, what's the problem? We don't really make use of stats and probabilities in our daily lives, do we?
Oh, my. Well, that's a common belief, but gosh, I mean, we're surrounded by statistics. Opinion polls, crime figures, product claims in advertising.
Exactly. I mean, it's just used to sell stuff, and so we ignore it.
Well, of course, statistics can be used to manipulate, but they also inform policy development, scientific progress, and many individual decisions. The heart of the matter is that there are good statistics and bad ones, and knowing the difference is empowering.
OK, so how can we tell the good from the bad?
Well, we need to recognise that different approaches to data collection have different degrees of validity. And we need to look for underlying problems with any research we encounter.
For example?
Well, say a food company is having some research done to see if its product has health benefits, right?
Mm-hmm.
It has a vested interest in the process, so researchers may get pressured into finding positive results. They may worry about not being employed again, which may affect their conclusions. Similarly, asking 50 people on social media will be less valid than a survey of 5,000 people chosen at random. That's not just because the sample size is too small, but also because social media will tend to attract people of similar views, so this grouping effect may exaggerate the results further.
Shouldn't publishers filter out this poor research?
You'd hope so. Obviously, research in a respected journal, reviewed by other experts, will be better than something published anonymously online. But even peer reviews can underestimate aspects like sample size. And interpretations can also be wrong. So, we always need to be on our guard.
Yeah, you mean the wrong conclusions may be drawn, whatever the data?
Absolutely. Take the issue of relative and absolute figures.
Relative and absolute?
Yeah. Say Company A produced 10,000 units last year and increased it to 12,000 this year. That'd be a 20% rise relative to its previous performance and an absolute increase of 2,000 units. Company B, on the other hand, produced 1,000 units last year and 1,400 this year, a rise of 40%. So, by comparing the relative changes, Company B could say it performed twice as well as its rival, but in absolute terms, its rival produced an extra 1,600 units compared to Company B.
I see.
But what's more, Company B may have employed more people to get its increase, while Company A may have achieved theirs whilst cutting staff. So, far from doing 100% better than a rival, Company B's actually being hugely outperformed. And, of course, 1 year doesn't make a trend. It could just be an anomaly.
Maybe they had one client who ordered a huge amount and won't repeat it.
Exactly. So you can see it's the focus on either a relative or absolute figure, and choosing the start and end point for the figures that can be used to twist data to suit your own ends.
Sure. So what about the probabilities we started with?
Well, the initial problem is basic maths. However, people also misunderstand how probability works as a prediction tool. They don't understand variables and the degree to which they're dependent.
OK.
If you had just thrown a head, or indeed 6 heads or 10, the probability of the next throw being a head is still 50%, not 25% or smaller. That's because these are random events out of your control. However, the probability of having a heart attack, say, is dependent on whether you've had one before. If you have, the risk of another is greatly increased.
Time to cut down on salt.
Well, maybe, but claims about direct correlations also need to be treated skeptically. As an extreme comparison, the fact that TV sales may increase in line with crime does not prove that one affects the other.
Well, you're beginning to convince me, but can you give some other examples?
Story 1. The main issue here is that it's difficult to interpret this story without knowing the number of accidents per journey or mile travelled. If there were twice as many journeys in fair weather, then the snowstorm has indeed led to an increase in the accident rate. Really, you'd need more evidence over a period of time to fully establish a correlation between accidents and weather. It could be that bad weather really does reduce incidents due to people driving more carefully. Story 2. The statistics themselves in this study were accurately collected and described. However, the lobby group who commissioned the study were so-called stay-at-home mums, and in the interpretation and the narrow time frame of the study, there was a strong element of twisting the data to fit a conclusion they'd set out to find. The truth, which was ignored in the analysis, is that aggression is a normal developmental stage in which children test boundaries. Not only is aggression normal, it doesn't usually last. The study failed to measure the stay-at-home toddlers' behaviour when they were mixed in groups, where the same levels of aggression can be observed. Indeed, a follow-up study by different researchers discovered that those kids who had been kept at home exhibited more aggression later at school than those who'd been in nursery, i.e., it simply appeared at a later stage. Story 3. This statistic seems counterintuitive, but only if you ignore other evidence. The study fails to mention that the number of fatalities dropped dramatically. As more people survive accidents, more are treated for injury. Of course, the statistic as it stands also tells us nothing about the severity of the injuries. Story 4. The group was self-selecting, so we might imagine those strongly against animal testing would be more likely to take part. And there's already probably a bias in terms of the readership of the magazine. Furthermore, the poll was actually conducted following a news report on cruelty and mistreatment in one laboratory. Story 5. The base numbers are all true. However, the starting point that was chosen was the year when there had been a terrorist bombing in the city, which obviously inflated the figures. In previous years, the figures had actually been 94 and 98. Of course, whether any fall in murders can be attributed to government policy is another thing. There could be a number of underlying causes.
In the mid-90s, there were 400 million hearing-impaired people globally, of which 70 million belonged to the 700 million-strong European population, and 25 million to the 300 million people in North America. The European figures are thought to rise to 95 million within the next decade. Remarkably, only 1 in 5 hearing-impaired Europeans uses an aid. There are a number of reasons for this. People may underestimate the severity of their own problem, or they worry that aids will look ugly. This is the biggest issue for newer generations, or perhaps they simply don't realize that help is available. HearIt runs an international website that aims to increase public awareness of hearing problems and help those who need it. We regularly publish articles about new products and allow users to post their own comments about equipment they've used. We also give directions to online shops where people can purchase the products. The main message we try to convey is that, in most cases, problems can be improved by the right equipment. Let me tell you about Ashkan Tirani, an Iranian engineer. Ashkan suffered his hearing loss in silence for many years. After coming across our website, he realized it didn't have to be that way. Now, fully kitted out in the latest aids, fitted with Wi-Fi technology, Ashkan not only works in engineering, but also teaches in the subject. And his confidence has taken off too. Obviously, we can't work miracles. Ashkan needs to use special recording equipment and transmitters in lectures. but this is a comparatively small inconvenience when compared to the gains. You can read more about Ashkan on our homepage. His story is quite inspiring. Of course, scientists are making breakthroughs in the field of hearing all the time. If you visit our site, you can read about some fascinating new developments in America. There, scientists have discovered that our skin also helps us to listen by picking up vibrations in sounds. They realized that the full listening process actually involves sight and touch as well as hearing, in order to provide the brain with a full impression of what sounds are being produced. So, in the future, we may be able to look forward to a very different range of products developed in response to these findings. This is just a small selection of the kind of information you can find on our site. It's likely that either you or someone close to you will experience hearing loss at some point, so I'm sure you'll find it an invaluable resource. Now, if I may take a few questions.
Hello, I'm Chris Hines, and a very special welcome to this week's episode of Work Junkie, the podcast all about current and future trends of work. This week I'm joined by Elaine Charlton, who's Dynamic Communications Orchestrator at one of the world's leading tech firms based in San Francisco. Welcome, Elaine. Can I first ask you, what does your job title actually mean?
Well, I often get asked that. It basically means that I help the company with all aspects of communications, whether it be social media, going to the press, internal communications, that kind of thing.
Right. So why such a fancy-sounding job title? Aren't people likely to just get confused?
Well, let me ask you this, Chris. What did you want to be as an adult when you were 8 years old?
Well, I really loved animals, and I was certain that I'd be a vet. But as I got older, I actually wanted to be a teacher.
Okay. And now you're a podcaster, right?
Yes, that's right.
So my point is, when you were 8 years old, did you know what a podcaster was?
Well, no, because they didn't exist back then.
Exactly. In the same way, it's highly likely that the jobs our children will do in the future don't exist yet.
But aren't a lot of these job titles now just fancy ways of saying the same thing? The other day, I saw a job for a knowledge navigator. I'm sure that a knowledge navigator is just a teacher.
Well, yes and no. On the one hand, many new jobs just didn't exist before, so they need new titles. This is especially true in the tech industry where I work. You have new technology coming along all the time, which means a demand for new skills, like coding, maintaining a strong social media presence, that kind of thing. So these jobs will need new titles, new ways of describing working practices. In the future, as new innovations come along, we can be certain that this process will continue to evolve and render current ways of working obsolete too. It's a constant transformation.
Right.
Also, a lot of companies are finding it increasingly difficult to recruit graduates with the right skill set. It really is an employee's market. So in a bid to attract the right kind of people, they're coming up with increasingly dynamic titles to attract them.
Like what?
Well, they change all the time. But some of my favorites from the last few years are ninja, guru, magician, and rock star.
Oh no, please. How are they used?
Okay, so the first one is Legal Ninja, which was advertised by a company in Palo Alto, California. They were looking for someone to provide legal advice on a range of issues.
So, essentially a lawyer?
Well, yes, kind of. More a legal advisor, if you will. Oh, next up is Data Guru, a position advertised by a company in Michigan. They were looking for someone to lead data activities.
Not quite sure what that means.
Me neither, but it sounds fancy, right? For magician, we have Full Stack Magician from a company in Atlanta. They were looking for someone to write code.
Ah, okay. So a programmer then.
Pretty much, but the job did involve analyzing costs of different coding alternatives. But we can be pretty sure that the job didn't involve any real magic per se.
So what about rock star? Company musician?
Alas, no. A New York-based company advertised for Rockstar Copywriter, which basically involves writing articles and social media posts discussing the industry and putting the CEO's name to them.
So you're unlikely to need to play the guitar then?
Not professionally, no.
Well, thanks for joining us today, Elaine. One last thing before you go, though.
Sure.
What did you want to be when you were 8 years old?
Oh, that's easy. I wanted to be a chocolate taster.
Nice work if you can get it.